ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ.
ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ
ಹಾ ಮೇಡಮ್. So let's start today's session. Good morning, everyone, and hope all of you are doing well and all the sessions were fruitful. And I welcome you all to the first session of the last day of this Atal-sponsored 5 days online faculty development program on best teaching, learning, and assessment practices in computer science and information technology based on national education policy. So today we have with us an eminent speaker, Professor MP Pushpalata, professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, SJCE, a constituent college of JSS Science and Technology University, Mysuru, who will be delivering an expert talk on effective pedagogy for software engineering practices. And I request Professor Shashikala BM to introduce our speaker.
Good morning to everyone. It's my honor to introduce today's speaker, Dr. N.P. Pushpalata. Dr. N.P. Pushpalata is currently working as a professor and head in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Sri Jayachamarajendra College of Engineering, a constituent college of JSS Science and Technology University, Mysuru, Karnataka. Professor Pushpalata received her BE degree in Computer Science and Engineering and MTech degree in Software Engineering from University of Mysuru. She received a PhD from Visvesvaraya Technology University, Belagavi, for her thesis work, Wavelet Neural Networks for Clustering and Classification. She has over 25 years of experience in teaching and research. Her research interests include healthcare informatics using data analytics and machine learning techniques. Madam has worked on funded projects including New Age Incubation Network to promote entrepreneurship at JSSTU, sponsored by the Government of Karnataka, KSCST Student Project, and eYatra project from IIT Bombay. She has been a coordinator for AICTE Survey and Smart India Hackathon 2019. Madam has published over 50 research papers in international and national conferences and journals and has been guiding several research scholars. Madam has successfully organized many workshops and conferences. She has delivered lectures in various FDPs, workshops, and conferences. I take the privilege of handing over to Dr. N.P. Pushpalata to deliver a session on innovative teaching practices in software engineering practices. Over to you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashikala and Vani, for the nice introduction. Thank you, Vani and Shashikala, for the nice introductions. I hope my screen is visible.
It is visible, madam. Please go ahead.
Offering my humble pranams to His Holiness Swamiji. It's a pleasure and honor to be associated in this beautifully designed FDP for the teaching fraternity. Actually, it is the need of the hour topic for the faculties of all different levels, that is, from the beginners to the experienced teachers. I must congratulate the professors of our institution, Dr. Vani Arun and Srimati Shashikala, for us arranging this beautiful program and its success in collaboration with the IIIT Allahabad. All the key lectures from the eminent professors were extremely good and informative. And now in this presentation, I will take you through the illustration of the practical course which was done during our schedule, that is software engineering, that is innovative teaching practice in software engineering. Actually, it is the need of the hour of topic for the faculties at all subjects which we are going to handle. So this is a topic with a course which is associated in a BE curriculum. So the agenda which I have planned for today's topic is an introduction and why this subject is required in terms of a software crisis, the expected outcomes, and the existing methods, which I have referred to certain papers, and the proposed methods for this course, which was offered, and the concepts related to project-based learning, which was used in the complete implementation. And unified modeling language is also one of the important concept, which is used as a best practice here. And what are all the best practices which were evolved during this execution during class service? And I also just want to map, like what are all the things which could be related to national education policy, because that's being the important factors which are to be addressed with as a part of the FDP. And I have one documentation which is to be presented, which was done from our students during my teaching. And also I have come out with certain scopes towards improvement. So introduction being software engineering, I just want to know which is basically a computer science course. But I understand that different faculty members of different disciplines are here. But even then, I don't think it will be a difficult subject to just go through it, wherein we can just adopt this framework for their kind of subjects which they teach. But coming to this particular topic, which is a main core course for computer science and engineering. And incidentally, we also have a master degree program in our institution. So I think this is something which is very important for the student career. This course mainly encourages students' skill sets in software project development and learning of traditional and new methods. I'll just talk about these two aspects, like the traditional methods and also the new methods which were evolved. And this is a subject where we also studied a 3 decade before. And now how exactly this has evolved with good practices is something which is just commendable. That's what we do in our class illustrations also. Students required acquiring these skills and becoming a software engineer need to apply in the job role daily activities as a part of the project development. This is basically the need for the students to acquire the skills from this subject. Why this software engineering is needed basically for the academics at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels, how it was evolved like. So although it was a software development initially, it's a course that comes along with the emergence of software crisis, which includes engineering and practical applications, where the same workforce was there, same methods were used, and same tools were incorporated. Although we had computer-aided software engineering tools, accordingly the industry is also used to equip with those tools. But then there was a need, how exactly the demands were met, and then the complexity were realized. And the challenges, how exactly we posed in this. So all these were addressed in this particular course eventually. incrementally, like adopting all the various methods, technologies based on the public needs also. So the causes of the software crisis were linked to the overall complexity of the hardware and the software development process. So if you look at the two components of this complete development, if you look at a software project development or a software system development, and the system and the project are interchangeably used here. So development with respect to the hardware and software, basically the two factors which are to be addressed with. The crisis manifested itself in several ways. Projects running over budget, running over time, was very inefficient, was a low quality, often did not meet requirements, were unmanageable and code difficult to maintain. So these were all the factors which was really bothering. And somehow, gradually incremental approaches were adopted to meet all these factors which were manifested as a software crisis. So I think we can just think of these things, how exactly they have overcome through this software development life cycle process. So due to the ever-expanding software scale, frequent changes in the software environment, and various manifestations of the software crisis, new methods and technologies in software development are emerging, and the contents of this software engineering curriculum are in a state of continuous improvement and development. So I can just relate an instance like when I studied the software engineering probably 20 years before, and afterwards subsequently in the postgraduate programs, and now what we are teaching is totally a different scenario, where there was totally a traditional conventional method of teaching, and now I will take you through an illustration of how exactly the course was done with the complete involvement of the students, not even a single second or a minute in which students used to feel that this is something a dry subject or which is really required a lot of other aspects. However, the content of software engineering teaching materials is relatively lagging, and most of them are in the form of software development theory and design principles rendered. So if you look at the textbooks, basically, definitely the concepts will be very clear and theoretical aspects would be covered. So relevant software development case studies and other application content is less. So probably they would have just incorporated one block diagram or a case study wherein that would really not suffice to teach them with a complete conceptual background. In the process of teaching, subject to the content of teaching materials, teachers are accustomed to arrange teaching content from the software development theory and the design principles which are there in the textbook contents. So we'll be used to a kind of a scenario where only the teaching materials or something like a textual informations are delivered. Thus, the supporting role of software development cases in teaching is ignored. So I mean to say, completely mapping to a case study is somewhere was missing. And also, even if you take a case study in a class, unless you experience it with all the involvement, with all the factors involvement, it will not serve the real practical purpose. So somewhere, software development process includes your architecture design, both at the low and higher level design, database system design, application design, implementation, other aspects. So teaching this software engineering also involves, very importantly, curriculum planning hours with adequate theme and other related factors. Substantive links with practical importance is a must. This is what I have felt all through my teaching of this course. In addition, the students have few opportunities and experiences in developing software projects, because this is a subject where we have almost all the universities do incorporate in the third year, something like 5th semester or 6 semesters. And that is where they get into the project development aspects. So feel that the contents are difficult to understand, not practical enough, unless we expose them to work on a particular project or a particular case study or an application. They feel very difficulty in understanding the conceptual concepts too. So in response to the above question, we thought of injecting in a new kind of a pedagogy, like teaching content into a software engineering course, and enhance practicality of the course, through project-based learning. This is what I have literally experienced in my teaching during the last years. And I have found it very effective, and also collected the data and statistically plotted certain results. I will show you the complete illustrations. All through my presentations will have a complete illustration of what exactly has been done. So this is where the gap, like the students with the faculty members was really reduced, because students would be able to understand the complete concept clearly, because they would be completely involving in the process implementation. So outcome from students, basically from this is to understand and to analyze different methods or process models. We basically define the complete software engineering in terms of software development life cycle with the help of process methods, process models. I think this can be referred. Otherwise, people who have taught this course will be more known about this. But anyway, this is not a must in this to be explained with. This is something like a framework which I am explaining it, and this can be easily applied to any other courses also. And basically here the main framework is to collect or gather the requirements, analyze the requirements, and apply suitable process models. This is again a trial and error method which students will be conducting the experiments to know which particular methods to be adopted with. And design principles need to follow for effective design. And generate a minimum number of essential test cases, without testing. I think actually, I just want to say one more thing here. This is a course by itself, and it's supposed to be something like a program, I'm just taken a very simple concept here of one simple course, and how this can be illustrated with the practical, incorporating the practical aspects through a project-based learning. And otherwise, this is a program where all the other components of this complete software engineering course will be done in the same way again. So there is one more thing, which is a software quality with respect to test cases. That is also a very important component, and students will be coming out with certain test cases to evaluate the system based on the system functionalities. So basically, what is system functionalities? Nothing but the functional requirements, which could be input requirements, output requirements of the system which is going to be designed with. And lastly, the very important component here is the documentation, very important. And this is what I have experienced with the students. They had some apprehensions with language, communications, and even they come out with extremely good presentations and documentations because of this exercise. I have experienced it with my students again. Preparation of different kinds of documents, artifacts, or deliverables all mean the same. Like the documentations after each different phases, like requirements documentations, design documentations, coding, based on the industry standards. Again, testing, maintenance documents, etc. So this documentation also plays a very important role in software engineering course. So incorporating these skills in students is a very tedious process. Very, very tedious, just imparting them in the theory class and then tell them some textual information, like this is a IEEE standard document, you just write it. Definitely, I think I have also experienced that kind of a teaching wherein I used to feel very hard in making them learn. But for this, so what I would like to recommend is, and this has given me a lot of accuracy-based improvement, and the performance is way better compared to the traditional concepts. So we need perfect planning, and for this we require a planning and implementation and working towards documentation based on the student abilities in acquiring skills and availability of time and resources. That is also one more important factor. Like how exactly we need to plan for a practical situation. I think I will tell you the complete details which I have done. So you will be really realizing it through my presentations. So in that context, improved innovation teaching through practical orientation course methods, solve problems exist in the traditional teaching software. This is experienced and also implemented. So I think in this context, I referred certain papers, I referred many papers related to software engineering education and different process methods and all the other things. But two papers, I just found them for my comparative studies. Like they had given certain task-driven methods, specified with certain defined tasks, and the assessment methods were done with some very little parameters. So here, two authors I've just taken. One is hand, he suggested task-driven method for this course, and how exactly he has used certain assessment methods. I have just listed out in one of the slides to assess the students, because assessment and evaluations are very important. I think we've been listening since the day session initiated with Dr. Nagbhushan sir, and later on with the outcome-based education from Professor Nagbhushan, and so many other faculties like Javed and Vijendra sir. All of them, they explained the courses that they offer and how exactly they do a kind of an assessment and evaluation, and rubrics were maintained. All those were really known to you people, and you people are doing it also, not that you people are not aware of it, but then this is something that the illustration which I have done, and what best practices which are evolved, and what are the improvements that I need to be really incorporated further when I teach further for this for the coming students, or comparatively the other subjects too also. So instructor will, here what happens is, in this particular reference, the author has given certain defined assess methods, and at the end of the situation, instructor will perform certain acceptance tests based on certain criteria. That is probably certain outcome based, and they submit a report kind of a thing. Anyway, I have a detailed slide of how exactly the existing method has been processed. So this process will improve the subject understanding, the step-by-step analysis, and just the incremental kind of a scenario. And of course, they would have done even project implementation with certain capabilities. And also one more author, he has used certain tools, like, I think those who have dealt with software engineering must be aware with computer-aided software engineering tools which are available. Some of the tools are open source too. So you can just give an hands-on to the students, they can just experience it, how exactly. I can just give you an instance at this point of time, probably for developing your software requirements documentation. UML is one of the best tools that we can make it as a practice, like I also have done that. So likewise, we have different tools for hands-on for different phases. I think this was explained in one of the author's paper. And few financially accessible open sources are utilized here in this paper for students to learn, comprehend, and add value added to the current existing course. And probably the faculties who are involved in the laboratories would help them, and hands-on sessions and things like that. So probably there also, certain kind of setting up lab meetings, test quizzes, and assignments. These were some of the assessment methods used in the papers also. So probably I would say like this: the additional exertion, this kind of enforcing or forcing the students or making them to learn, replays with a huge improvement in students' learning. Not that the papers were not really enough contributed. Yes, they were really understood well, and then given a lot of assessment methods in their own way of making students to learn. So summary of the existing methods would look like this. Like it involves forming a group, assigning a task to each group, reviewing group work, mentoring or facilitator for a group. This is a common kind of a scenario which I think everybody will do this. I think this is more executed in the final year projects, I think in almost all the colleges, I guess. But then what we generally do, I think I just want to really say this, even in our department, most of the conceptual subjects like operating systems, networks, software engineering, and other web technologies, and their courses are done through project-based learning based on the faculty's involvement, and they design their own way of leading the course. So similarly, this paper also has certain very fundamental aspects of this, and this is also there in my illustration, but added to this, I will just show you how exactly the improvements are incorporated. So in the traditional approach, what I felt was there are no particular rules for the above set series of steps, like no reasonable constraint for forming a batch, who should be the members of a group. And this also matters a lot, according to me, because I have experienced in two cases, making a group in two different ways, which I have felt, like, what is the best way in which we can do it. Of course, each way has its own advantages and disadvantages, but then something that we can evolve with a good performance is always to be considered. And no rubrics for evaluating the group task, and effective review process was not done. These were the things which I found in those papers. Additionally, time management is very important in this course. We just cannot lag behind, and it is where we can not do the program. And I agree. I think you people agree with how exactly we've been constrained with the framework. I think we are dedicated to some specific hours based on the credit codes which we have. I think I just want to say at this point of time, we have, let's say that 3 credit scores of this course of 39 hours in a complete semester, and 1.5 hours of practical sessions per week. That's going to be 3 hours. And probably we would get around 12 sessions, excluding the test and other things. But this is a different way in which I have designed, with taking the same kind of a timeline. And also, students will be aware of a very important ethical aspect of plagiarism, like when they do a documentation in solving the given task and documentation. This is something which is really taken care. And student has to actively participate. That is a very important thing which I think NEP also recommends, which I will take you through at the end, how exactly this kind of a learning has a major impact of the features which NEP has given in his document, in the documents which is provided. And analyze, apply all the required software engineering principles. This is what the students have experienced and given a wonderful feedback also. So these are the points in the traditional approach, and what are the things which are additionally required. So what is the proposed method? It helps in incorporating the required knowledge and analysis skills in students, which is very, very important. So which leads to critical thinking also, creativity and all other aspects. And this proposed methods describes the innovative teaching methodology for this particular course through practical orientation. And what basically this method incorporates teamwork, peer learning, communication skills, which are very, very important, critical thinking, creative learning, problem solving, analysis, and presentation skills. So I think these are very important for a student, at least at the undergraduate level, because these are to be upgraded, updated, and there's something that it's never ending. So learning is basically a never-ending course. Every day we can just adopt, and probably even for this, I just want to make certain improvements when I teach next time. So these are the things which I have incorporated in this illustration, which is also done. So continue to this, I just want to specifically say the proposed method is 3 credit course with 39 hours of lecture hours and 1.5 credits of practical classes of 3 hours per week. This is a method which in our college or institutions, and most of the faculty members know this, like 301.5, that is a lecture, tutorial, and practical. I think LTP, which is a kind of a framework which was also explained many of our fellow lecturers or professors than in the previous sessions. The proposed method, I felt it's more interactive and brainstorming too, because it's completely, I never wasted a single minute probably during the discussions with the students. In fact, the bonding between the students and the lecturer would increase like anything. Even for a student who has some kind of apprehensions in talking to a lecturer, they will come and talk to you, and the motivating to the students. That is one of the important skills for a teacher to be done with. That is very, very important, because we want to make them learn. This is also one of the promoting aspects of NEP, which you all see, how exactly we make students learn. It's not just the imparting the teaching, imparting the material through our sessions. It is that how exactly they give the outcomes that are generated and what is the feedback towards. This is very important. So I think this is really realized in my, in my exercising this kind of a methodology. With this approach, students will learn all the principles, predominantly all the principles. And I mean, definitely it cannot be a one-to-one mapping with the industry. I will also come to that point, because I also have contacted certain industry people, they have come and evaluated the projects and they have given a very good feedback. So by applying these principles and in the project development. So this is something which I felt which is very, very good at the UG level. And discussions and activities will encourage the students to think critically and apply the skills learned throughout the course. It's not that they can just leave it, like this is a complete cycle, and they will be doing till the end submission of the report. And sometimes some of the at least some 10% of it will be a term paper. I'll also talk about it, how research will have a research promotion makes the students learn many things. So step steps in the proposed method. So in this, for the assessment criteria and also the evaluation, so we require certain attributes or parameters to be coming out with. Forming a group, assigning a task to each group, reviewing group work, mentoring a group, very important, intergroup peer review process, updating intergroup marks and preparing documents, and class reviews, very, very important, because here, the complete faculty involvement is also very much there. And, and we will be reading extra material to tell them regarding a particular case study, because we will not be knowing that all the case studies which they come. I think I will also list out certain case studies which students did in the last semester. And certain questions, this is only to, make them, suppose a student is very good in other aspects, somewhere we have to, make them understand better. We will give some kind of an online quiz for some 5 marks, 5 questions in each class, in each practical sessions. Updating class review remarks, evaluating the group tasks. These are certain things. Of course, you also can add certain things according to your context, subject context, and other things related. Because sometimes if it's a different discipline or a department, they have their other way of incorporation, because of the subject. This is related to the subject which I am teaching. More or less, the framework looks good, probably even for others, I guess. So at the end of this course, the expected outcomes, basically, students submit a case study documentation or an application documentation which they have done, and PowerPoint presentation of a soft copy and a hard copy to the department. And this is to maintain the complete details, because this is required for all our accreditation and other things. All of you know about it. I don't think that is really required to be explained. And term paper. Term paper is a must, that is really made students to learn many, many things. And one more thing, I just want to make it very clear here. The course, for all this to happen very nicely or very effectively, course material planning is important, which, I think these are the things which are done. Before the course starts, the course plan is prepared, which includes probably, I think I just derived with the course objectives, very important. What is that the objectives are to be defined for a course, and what will be the outcomes for the objectives. So basically the outcomes which I stated holistically, but there are certain analytics which are to be measured with. So I think with respect to rubrics, we have basically 2 types. One is holistic rubrics and analytic rubrics. Although I have not completely implemented here, but I have a plan further to really come out with the Bloom's taxonomy parameters along with the rubrics evaluation. That will be a really good paper, which I guess that will be done further. This is what I've planned with. I also have a scope for future improvements of what is presenting now. Each topic learning outcomes are very important. And for example, here, all the different phases of software development life cycle. And these are related to subjects. And how is that we make them work? It's not that, haphazardly ask them, you make yourself batches, and some of them who are very good, very nicely interacted with the other mates, they will do a group, and some others will left out, some others will not talk in the class. So all those things need to be looked at as a teacher. That is what is required. You need to teach them, you need to make them very comfortable and not with any bias, or we need to treat them very uniformly amongst all the students. That is very, very important. And the list of case studies also makes a major difference here. Rubrics for evaluation. Time allotment for each activity within the given semester schedule, very importantly, because we have 12 sessions, and sometimes we get holidays, and sometimes we have some other things and many other constraints. Some things can be adjustable. I'm just giving you a framework. You can design your own course however you like. I think some 10 to 15% you can customize to this. Also, teaching materials, sample case studies are very important, because whenever I say something, students used to ask me, Madam, can you give a small example for this? So additional resources. And now I think it's not at all difficult. When I studied software engineering, nothing was available. Now I think you get things which are more than what is required. You all agree with me in that. And web links. So before this, these are the things which I generally think of planning it. Before to start the practical course, this is also very important, because the prepared course plan should be shared with material and prerequisites like some software tools, predominantly here, case tools for the course, and assignments. And sometimes, we may have to, get them loaded in our lab. For that we would require an assistance of a supporting staff. All this, if there are planned priori, this will be very useful course. And the quiz topics also, you cannot just do ad hoc kind of a thing. You can just tell them, this is the topic which I'm going to give a quiz on, prepare and come. So that makes them more confident, like based on the subjects, other than giving them, sudden kind of a test and make them very uncomfortable and just want to cut the marks. You give them some online quiz without telling them. I think that really doesn't make any purpose, I guess. See, ultimately, it's not that the evaluation is to harass students or target students, according to me. Like, I just want to make them learn very healthily. And this is what is ultimately to be looked at. I think most of you, everybody will do that. Just a matter of thing which I just wanted to say at this point of time. And schedule and rubrics are very important. Although I have not done complete rubrics thing, this is a plan of mine in a further schedule. But otherwise, I have incorporated certain extents what rubrics are considered. And continuous evaluation process and its rubrics are also given to the students well in advance. Otherwise, just like that, if you give the last minute, this is what I will consider for this term paper, and if they are not prepared in the initial, because they will be reading all other subjects along with this, not the only subjects, right? So we need to be very much in advance to tell them the required guidelines. This is also very, very important according to my understanding. The rubric is basically an evaluation tool or a set of guidelines used to promote the consistent application. I think there is a enormous theory on this, which I have not really worked into for my illustration. But anyway, I think I will be taking this further. Learning expectations, learning objectives, or learning standards in the classroom, or to measure their attainment against a consistent set of criteria. So I think now I've just taken some scale of measurement. Otherwise, this is something a very different concept, wherein I can make a complete assessment, and this also can be a paper further. So, and this is interesting, like, forming groups. I know all of you are very good in doing things, but this is how I have done. The team formation will play an important role. I think I've taken two things. One is type 1 and type 2. One of the things are in the paper also. That's why I just took this to have a comparison. I think I'll just give an illustration for 60 students, although we have certain other students of, extra entries through diploma and other things, but I'll just take it as a standard way of intake. 60 students are divided into 3 groups, namely A, B, and C, according to their CGPA. And this also, I just want to just say in 1 minute, this CGPA kind of thing is also there in our college for the final year projects, grouping with the students. Same criteria I also used here. And how this has helped and how the other kind of making batches will have advantages. Each team constitutes members from each grab, thus forming a team size of 3. So members from group A will be the team leader, wherein he is going to contact with the other students, wherein in the 3 groups, they can make a group of their, kind of uniformity or some kind of fairness towards them. And categories of forming batches based on the CGPA, I just show you one table after this. And the type 2 is something like a pre-assessment. And this was also done in once, like I just gave certain questions to make them group, like they just scored certain marks. And the evaluation is done, report is generated for 3 categories. And then here, what advantage is, the student of the same kind of a knowledge will be in one group. This has certain advantages. And the other, which I mentioned, taking one group, one student from each group, will make the student to learn from themselves, those who, something like not putting all the students who are good in one batch. So eventually what happens is, some of the students, some of the batches will not come out with the good projects. So that is where this is both of them, both the kind of ways in which the groups are done has its own advantages. I'll just leave it to that part of the time, because you can do however you think it's comfortable. This is what I have done for my illustration. So here one is to have the groups with completely the level of knowledge of the same kind. The other one is to the CGPA, marking each group will have one student from each group. This is how I think I can just give you a simple table, for my statistical analysis, which I've considered down the line. I'll just show you the graph also, which through the data which is generated from this. Type A is based on the CGPA course, and type 2 is through the pre-assessment. So group 1, group 2, group 3, and 3 categories of similar kind of students in 3, and list of students probably. I have just, this is 60 students in, dividing into 3 different batches. This is very important, Why? Because once I also have done without doing all this. Very haphazardly it was done, which was not really effective. And this is very systematic, very nice, and student will also feel very uniformity amongst themselves, and they will not be knowing who will be in the group, and all those things will make them learn very effectively and very nicely. And this is forming the batch, and this is something that you also can have your own way of doing it. Assigning a case study to a group, and because later I also, when I read the papers, so like people see how importance in framing a group. I felt it is really important because after reading so many papers, it's not that it is left out. This is also one of the important attribute for conducting this project based learning. And assigning a topic to a group should be unique. It should be favorable to the group again. You cannot give them something which is they don't understand only. So thinking that we want to give them less marks or target them, no, that's not a correct way. Everything should be readily acceptable from the student. There's only, like something like a one-to-one, okay? Very important, like always, give and take. This is a policy we should follow. We should give first. Then probably you can take the maximum from the students. This is what I think. It is true with everywhere, even in our personal issues also, personal cases where if you give more, probably you'll get more. This is what I have a policy of doing it anyway. Of course, without expectations, Assigning a topic to a group should be unique and it should be favorable to the group, means that at least 50 to 60% of the team students will have something that otherwise they will not get confidence only. If they think that it is uncomfortable, if they don't have the enough expertise, all that, they will say, this is also I've experienced, madam, I did not understand anything. This is how they come out with. That should not happen. The group would be willing to work with the given case study, or I also have one more option. To avoid copying, each group wouldn't have a duplicate case study. And this is also has happened. If you don't take a proper care, just give them and do whatever you like. If you say, sometimes most of the case studies will have the same kind of presentations and same kind of a context, which happens if we are not involved. Faculty is not. This is also I have experience. Not that I have not. No, I did not do this. This has happened, and I felt very uncomfortable at the end. Because I did not attempt initially of telling them this should not happen. Unless we tell them, how will they know it, right? So this is important. And a list of unique case study topics is prepared and given to the student group for selection. Sometimes this has also happened. Sometimes, because when we teach in the 5th or 6th semester, we can tell them to explore. And some of them will come with a very good topics, like they will have a beautiful ideas and they will say that they will implement this. I think around 25% of the students I have experienced, they will come out with their own case study, beautifully done. And let me tell you at this point of time, which I have felt very happy, because this semester I taught one important course, which is a new subject of 2 credits, that is social media analytics for the students. I was really amazed to see the projects which they had done. I had given them a little information, but they did wonderfully the projects. I was so excited to see the presentations in terms of visualization. So, the involvement makes a bigger sense, and also at each level. This is what I have felt, experienced also. And unique case studies, I think I have, I'll show you certain things which I gave it in the last semester for my students. An option is given to the students to select from this list, or group may also choose their own case study. This both I have done. And reviewing group case studies is a process, very, very important. Like if you don't do a kind of a commitment to the review it, and lastly, when it comes to the assessment and evaluation, no, this is not correct. Why you have taken this? Why did you do this? All that we do it, just for the targeting purpose. That should not be done. I think review is very important in software engineering. You must have seen, in all the different phases, they conduct a lot of review meetings. I think those who are, some of the faculties might also have an experience with industries, right? So industries, they take almost every week reviews, sometimes day-wise reviews, right? Similarly here, we can't do that much. At least we can have review meetings in every lab and keep it for some minutes. I think I have a flow chart, I'll show it to you. The practical course has the contents, requirements, gathering, elicitation. I have one beautiful elicitation documentation from my students at the end. I have that also in my agenda. Designing UML models is a very good practice because this is just, I want to tell you one more thing at this point of time. UML is an object-oriented concept. But software engineering, we teach the traditional concept, procedural concept. But somewhere, of late, if you look at the books of software engineering, they have incorporated both. When we studied Pressman in the fourth edition, third edition, somewhere UML was not really incorporated. I think most of you agree with this. Later on, without UML, nothing was executed. So that is why I also insist students to, although it is little old, which is old is always a gold, according to me. So something that UML, although adaptations are done, but UML is also a very good tool for all the different phases. Of course, coding is very important. Even if you look at MEP policies, coding is something that you should learn. You should make the students learn from schools only. I think I just read one document, how coding is important in the MEP features, MEP policies. Anyway, that's not my point of presentation at this point of time. Implementation is very important, at least in the computer science level. Designing front end, very, very important. Test cases. And of course, now it's not a difficult thing because we have all tools for front end design. They don't have to write anything, just plug in. So, and then they should know, but they should know the libraries to be imported with. And test cases are very important. Test cases I will not touch now because this is a separate topic altogether, but test cases are very important for the validation purpose. And documentation, of course, for each phase. These are something that we will be doing and we have done. And reviews are required. So every lab session, one activity from the lab schedule is given as an assignment. So we can take an assignment for each group and give them assignment there only for the each group. Or you can make a common assignment, say requirements activity in one session or design activity in one more session, UML documentation in one session, test cases in one session. Likewise, you can plan. So this is something that I have distributed the 180 minutes time of 3 hours with the following activities. Let's say like this. The activities are something like this. Presentation of case studies, because this I have experienced because in one time of teaching my software engineering course, I did not really make an attempt of giving them case study explanation in the beginning. But later I felt that many students were really not very free to tell me that case study, hey, you should tell us in the beginning and things like that. Later on, when I asked them in the feedback, they said, madam, if you had given one application in the beginning, maybe it would have really helped us. So this is where from then onwards, one case study, although they will not be knowing completely the things, but one case study representations will make them a real big difference, which I have experienced, of course. Presentation of case studies application for 30 minutes. Prepare solutions for the given assignment, 30 minutes. Intergroup review process. I have detailed things I'll show you to you. Students, this is between the students, because I think I'll show you how groups also can be formed. Updating intergroup review remarks and documentation preparations and presentation. Some of them will be good in documentation in the group. And I insist them to give the students who are not good in documentation so they'll also learn. And presentation from each, over the period of time from completing the project practical course or any course of that particular thing, they will also be very used to giving presentations. They will not feel any stage fear or any kind of apprehensions in talking to students, with group students or faculty or whatever. Class review, online quiz, which I told you. It's between both faculty. Who are all the actors involved here? So this is also I mentioned it. Updating class review remarks, very important, because unless you update it in the documents, you will not have any scope for any improvements. This is how the total 180 marks of 3 hours has been divided. You can just have your own customized way of doing it. This is just an illustration I just told you in the beginning itself. So mentoring is very, very important. So here also, like mentoring, it's not only because it's a practical session, it's not only the instructor will have a major role. It's also that the lab instructors, the other faculty members who are handling the lab will also have a major contribution here. And that is why, we have a practice of giving faculties who are handling the course predominantly, and those who have handled earlier, likewise, we usually nominate like that. Sometimes, 10% here and there we do miss because of so many constraints. Otherwise, we just allocate the faculty members who are in the particular domain only. This is what we generally follow it. But due to various concerns, because we have a very large strength in our department, and most of the faculty members are focused to certain domains, and some of them will not have experienced, in this particular thing, and they will learn and then do it. It's not a big deal, but then this is how we just do it. But teachers should be playing a role of facilitator and monitor the group members, how they are participating in intergroup, because this is also one of the rubrics which I have considered for the evaluation, and of course for the assessment. Intergroup and intragroup, resolve the conflict. Sometimes, they come up with that. I think I've experienced in one group, especially, I should not say that, the girls probably, they do a lot of commitment to the work. This is what I have observed. Excuse me if I'm wrong. So resolve the conflicts, if any, and I have just told them, each come out with their own ideas, and guide and provide suggestions is very important. Observe the participation of members and their involvement in the group. In practical lab sessions, student strength is 20 for each batch we have done, and 3 batches are formed. So each lab session has 7 groups. Each faculty mentors are 2 to 3. 2 or 3 will be for each faculty members. So 3 faculty allotted for each practical course. And I'll just show you one table which I've framed, like faculty 1, A1, A2 batches, faculty 2, A3, A4, and faculty 3, A5, A6, A7. This is what I have planned with. We have also executed the same format. And how the inter-review process takes place. I told you review is an important technical concept here. It's not that just the review means just see it and then give something which is not relevant. No, something that review related to a particular context. And this is also one of the important technical aspect of software engineering course, which helps in preparing solution with the help of intergroup members and faculty mentor. Sometimes, faculty will also learn through a student. This has happened, it's not that we will be knowing everything. And review is the process of presenting the solution to the peer group also, and note down the remarks made by the peer group. So in the process of this, there will be some kind of a competition developed from the groups also, I should do better than that group. Like that also has been motivated here. So you can see, so many skills are established through this process. And all the students will be interacting, and they will have a lot of unity amongst themselves. And the review process enhances, according to me, interpersonal skills, presentation skills, analysis skills. And it's not just on the paper, this is really realized. Problem solving skills, etc. Continued. This is the process. The group interacts at most with other 2 groups. I think I have planned for 2 groups interactions, not that one group will just give. Otherwise, you can get comments from the other groups and incorporate. For example, group 1 interacting with the other group and respective case study. Similarly, at the same time, group will also present. In the process of interaction, both the groups are learning one more case study in addition to that. So, like they can incorporate their kind of a conceptual representation, because overall, the conceptual understanding of software engineering principles are the same. Context level representations, like only it matters when it comes to the context of the subject. So in that connection, if they had missed out something, they can also incorporate. So this is something like the group interactions with other group for 15 minutes each. So it comes out to 30 minutes intergroup review process. So this is important. Updating intergroup remarks and documents preparation. So update the remarks made in the intergroup review process, and also prepare the documentation in PowerPoint presentation. So many have really improved a lot with this, And I think I have just usually, I insist them to use this UML documentation tool for all the different phases, or any other design tool. Now I think you have a freely downloaded for a few days. They can just use it and prepare the documentation. Time allotted for this remarks and updating the documents is 40 minutes. Class review, very important. For updating the intergroup remarks, preparing solutions and documents, each group will present to all groups using a LCD projector. So it's something like, you are giving time to the other groups. You respect other group, ideas. This is very, very important. Nowadays, the listening span of the students are very, very less. Unless we ensure that we make them exercise doing all this, they will not learn anything. And I think I have seen in some placements also, people will be very good in intellectually and the skills and everything, but the HR is very, very bad accepting others' things. They always feel that they are good, they are correct, others are not correct. This is the attitude with the younger generation students, which I have felt with my children also. This is something that it is known to everybody. So all these can be, you can, I think I have solved a lot of issues with this kind of a teaching. So I will know students' interaction, students' mentality, all that has happened, and this is cannot be explained at this point of time, but this is what I have personally experienced. This is a second review process, something like I feel, most of the faults are missing things are identified, and some things can be incorporated also, the other batches. So not like, don't incorporate this things, nothing like that. So if it is a genuinely acceptable, they used to get, take the things. So, and this is something which is really required as an online quiz, just to test their memory or test their subject knowledge. In every lab we conduct, and sometimes we'll give the marks, next class, or sometimes nowadays we have a Google Classroom. We are very much used to this in this pandemic situation. All of them are using Google Class and then posting all the materials, which is really wonderful. And some things are very advantageous. All of you know about this, and this is something like a 40 marks allocation. Updating class review remarks. Very good, very important. So this is to be updated in the necessary documents, because documents, as I told you very clearly, software engineering, without documentation, there is nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I think those who have handled this surely agree with me. Without documentations, I don't think we can speak about software engineering. And this is very important, all of you know about this from the assessment and from the evaluation purpose, how we are going to evaluate the group task results. Continuous evaluation, which is one of the, which I would like to attribute a very strong, and in our system. We used to feel sometimes, what is this 5 events? We should do a lot of involvement and too much of tedious. But I think this is, for project-based learning, I think this is the best method that I can ever see. Continuous evaluation for 5 events we have. 3, it's compulsory closed book test, as I think last class, I think Moni madam has explained that thing also. I don't have to speak on that, but I just want to say about this 5 events, I would strongly recommend for this kind of project based, especially from 5th semester onwards. And most of our faculty members are doing this project based learning. And at this point of time, I also would like to attribute to one of the faculty members. He also called a person from the industry and evaluated a project and give them some kind of certification. This I have given it to the students who have done the projects. Likewise, people are doing it uniquely in their own way. Absolutely good. And that's why I felt this illustration is very much required. Not that you can take the same thing, you can customize to your own kind and then your subject which you're going to teach with. So this needs to be done in every lab session, very important. So, and we will also have not burden, at the end of the practical marks, session, practical evaluation and giving marks. Sometimes, if you don't do it systematically in the beginning, we will be worried with at the end, because students who are doing very well, they will be seeing what marks madam will give. So in that situation, it's better that every lab session, if you do it very continuously and allocating the marks as per the rubrics which you have given earlier, and document preparation, case study, and they will also be very alert, they will be very cautious in doing the next lab. Once we give them, this is what marks you have got, and if attendance is not there, this much. So they will be very regular. This is what has happened. For each evaluation parameter, rating is scaled between 1 to 5 scale based on the performance. This is something like a, I cannot say it's an completely analytic rubric, but then not a holistic, of course, but some amount of scaling is incorporated. The final total score will be based on scale given to given practical course related to the total internal marks. Evaluation is done based on the accepting test. I think if you just see my previous slides, in the existing methods of the paper, we had just some way in which, not a crude kind of a thing of accepting the documentation. Those are given out based on some measurement, acceptance of the given, if they submitted the documents, yes or no, something like that. But this is not so. Design system, these 3 parameters are accurately checked. Design system with incorporating all the attributes. Documentation is done correctly. Fulfilling the requirements are very, very important. What do you mean by fulfilling the requirements? Like whatever the functional requirements they are specified in the beginning phase should be satisfied still. And I just have one result where I through the analytical, some statistical tools which I have used to from the students' data for the total number of students. I just thought, last time greater than 90% of 47 students have secured between this 8 and between this 5. So I would say, some good amount of accuracy. The majority of the students scored 90%. With this approach, the students, one thing which I was very happy is student could be able to solve any real kind problems. So also geared on the majority of the software engineering principles. Majority. I would not say that the complete development is industry orientation. So although the industry orientation software engineering is a little more of practical situation, but then, and I also want to say at this point of time, in one of the batches, I also did a certain survey from one of the industry experts. He did, and he came and evaluated some of the reports. He was so astonished to say that beautiful documentation, madam, such a good thing. Sometimes even our trainees will not do this. So this is what the appreciation given by the industry people also. And I mean, that practice I just stopped for a few reasons. I think that should be continued, otherwise they will also get so much of appreciation, and some amount of reward should be given to the students. That is where we can really say that the motivation, and that will be an added value for their credentials too. So now assessment method. So this innovative curriculum assessment methods for the project assessment include, because I think it was mentioned very clearly in one of the professors in talk, assessment is very important, like formative assessment and cumulative assessment. I also have one slide. I will not talk much on this because I have some other things to show, like what is being experienced and totally done. This is what my today's scope. Like students' actual software development ability is improved through the methodology adopted. This is what I have experienced, and it is proved also learning this course. And students will choose the actual project development process as a software engineering development case analysis. This is very important, and this should happen in all the subjects, relative subjects. Not like first and second semester we can do, but there also we have one subject called innovative studies, and this time we also handled that. 3 faculty members from our department did beautifully designing the ideas to the students, and students have come out with wonderful ideas. And although they cannot do it from the software development life cycle process, but they have come out with good kind of a project documentation for their idea that they have generated with. Continuing this assessment, I just have one more slide related to this. Acceptance test is adopted to test students' grasp of software engineering and related theoretical knowledge of the course, as well as the practical applications of the book knowledge in the actual software development. Not that, we cannot just only the practical session students are good. If they don't apply any theoretical aspects, write something, then we cannot assure them. This is also important. Adopting the project practice assessment, and the students will independently decide the subject items and form a task group. So what ultimately leads to the team conducts all these aspects like feasibility study, analysis, software outline design for the chosen project. So the task group submit the appropriate documents based on the division of work. So they will also be assigned to each one of them. Very, very important. I think actually I had certain problems in one of the papers. I could not, because of this material itself is too much. That's a totally different topic. Like how you are going to address the students who are not doing anything. So even that is also an important, social aspect, which is very, very important, because such kind of percentage is also there. I think I've seen some students, they will not be doing anything, absolutely zero. Situations are there. You should make them do. That is something that which is required in the NEP policy also. Based on the division of work, the detail, you should see that, in every class, each contribution of the student should be recorded. Then they will be aware of doing. Sometimes some students, they will relax. Simply they will relax, thinking that the others will do, we can enjoy. Some of them will not know how to do it. So both the ways are there. Students are very smart. So we should know, we should be more smarter than them to realize everything. This is what is required as a teacher. So detailed design, coding, module level testing, all these are done. All these are done to an extent, not exactly to an industry related project, but then definitely appreciated by the industry people. The final internal examination will test the competencies and the outcomes of the course specified. Say, for example, if I have 50 marks, I would be giving each lab session with all those rubrics evaluated. And this is something that added the component. I'll just tell you in 1 or 2 minutes. The purpose of this curriculum construction is not just enough with the text material, as you all know. It's established a reasonable knowledge structure, focusing on the overall optimization of the curriculum and reflecting the teaching pattern, because this is also there in program outcomes. If you just see, I think most of you have done your MBA criteria parameters. There are this program outcomes. I think some 12 objectives are there. So all these optimizing the curriculum and then relating to a course, this really matters. I think this is what I have planned for analysis completely in my next teaching. I would like to give a complete analysis of Bloom's taxonomy and the OBE based and all that stuff with the rubrics evaluation. It's necessary to systematically reform the curriculum system, organize teaching, contents carry out innovation and practical teaching, reform teaching methods and means. I think this is very subjective. I don't want to debate on this because each faculty is expertise in their subject, and I think they will be able to reform their own curriculum, how they are handling. This is a subjective matter, but this is to be incorporated. When arranging the teaching content, we should consider the teaching links such as teaching discussions, homework, experiment, practice. All these are can be experienced through this project-based learning. I think we cannot leave out these things and then just do a project-based. So we should make full use of modern technology, which we are doing it right now, and which we are forced to rather, but this is something like a boon now. And three-dimensional teaching content system, which emphasizes on the construction of three-dimensional teaching materials, which include all this along with the digital technology. So related to this, very importantly, I just want to make this very important thing is the importance to the research. I think I told you I also have one of the rubric assigned to this term paper on the reform of teaching contents and curriculum system of famous universities at home and abroad. So we have very good papers related to our Indian authors and foreign universities. And some of them are giving a very good course in software engineering or any other subject for that matter. So we can take their syllabus and then see how we can effectively introduce them. And we can even call them for some expert lectures. Nowadays, it's very easy for them to get collaborated with. So we can get some help. And sometimes, as Professor Nagushan said in one of those lectures, one of his slides, Sir mentioned that it's not that only the classroom teaching. So I think this is where I have also experienced students will learn outside the class more than the things, like they can take based on these materials and other things, they would read and come and discuss. And after the class, in order to make up the limitations of classroom, because we have just 50 minutes or 1 hour, we just cannot do everything. And give convenient students to learn at any time. So what it ultimately incorporates a self-learning ability and learning consciousness. This is really experienced with full-heartedly, I would like to say this. And especially some of the students are very, very good, like self-learning ability. And only thing is we should make them do all that. And it's a two-way benefited. We also learn, we also have a lot of benefits in getting that done. But also facilitates individualized teaching and targeted learning and peer learning. This has all happened. And lastly, we have teaching design and implementation. We divide the learning process into 2 stages generally, which includes knowledge teaching and engineering practice. So that is material by practical orientation. Practical orientation can be any form. So what I have illustrated is through project-based. That's all. So I just want to comprehend all this. Knowledge teaching is to lay a strong theoretical foundation for students. So conceptually, we should make them understand the basics, fundamentals. Very, very important. A project is included to attract students' interest. Students will be told what relevant knowledge is required to complete the project. Then target will be explained to lead students to learn. So this is very important. One thing very important which I found is I have, if I am not involved and then getting the results and completely involved in getting the results, I myself can make a lot of differences, major difference rather. So lot of satisfaction which has evolved from involving and then giving them a lot of ideas, and you'll also learn, you'll also read, all this has happened. Engineering practice, this focuses on a software design and software coding phases, which is predominantly, especially for computer science students. Project sources include incorporate projects, teacher development projects. Something like, what do I mean by this? Something like an industry-oriented projects they can take. I think this will be done somewhere in the internship in the final year, but otherwise also, 5th, 6th students, they can take some industry projects also. Teacher development projects is basically research-oriented projects, which we have some research work they can do on that. And student-owned projects they will come out with their own idea of conducting a project. Adaptability of the program to the change should be investigated. This is something which is very much required, and it is totally subjective. It also depends on a teacher. How exactly we can make our subject interesting, and how changes can be. See, if you are teaching one subject every semester, probably around 4 to 5 times, unless we make certain changes to it, it's of no use. So this is where we can make certain incorporations. I think most of you are doing it. An iterative process, students develop the ability to learn in error. This is because nothing is error prone. So whatever we do, we do the activities, everywhere we cannot say that we are perfect. We need to learn by making errors, making mistakes. And this has happened, and people will come out with good, students will come out with good results. So lastly, in this particular thing, I just want to divide this complete software engineering practice teaching into basic experiments and comprehensive practice. So basic experiments, extension and application of the case teaching method in classroom teaching. So, this also I have felt. Just, telling them the theoretical aspects is one way. The other one is take simple example, relate that in a classroom. Both are, very good, but then depends on how you are going to convince the students. And students develop understanding of the comprehensive software life cycle. This is, I'm talking about the software engineering subject. Students' mastery of skills and tools for requirements, all the different phases in the basic level. Content emphasizes of the design type, and the experimental form as a verification type, both experimentation and verification or validation. And students simulate software problems similar to the teaching case. So they're going to just simulate the problems which taking simple problems. The basic experiment facilitates the complete training of every student and the basic skills of software engineering. Through experiments, students get the cognitive process of software development, master the theory and method of software engineering, and this overall improves the proficiency of the software in software project. So incorporating all these basic concepts in terms of foundations, conceptual knowledge, and applying it to a simple application. So I think that's the Bloom's taxonomy, which you also agree with me, like recall, apply, analysis. This is what the basic level. Probably application and creating and the next higher levels will be your comprehensive practice, like through a project-based, I would guess. So development of a comprehensive practice is something like development of student project ability and teamwork awareness. Very, very important, Unless we make them to work in a team, I think we will really not doing the justice from the faculty point of view. So practice covers the complete process of software project development. So they will be doing an iterative practice or incremental way, whichever comfortably they are good with. Students can gain more real-world software project development experience through this practice. This is what I have completely experienced, and most of you would also agree with this. And I think I just show you this statistics results, which I have taken from the task-driven is basically some specific point. And here I have used the SSS method. I think I had listed out some 7 to 8, intergroup reviews, class, the activities which I mentioned. So I've taken some data, although it's not implemented through a program, but this is through some statistical tool. Assessment, this is a performance metric I've used, performance evaluation, course outcome. And the assessment evaluation is through the different factors which I've explained. So I was little happy with this, and this requires a lot of improvements. I will be doing that further. And I've taken for 60 students of my previous batch students. And this is what the graph which I've come out with. I'm happy with the increase in accuracy with the proposed method. And conclusion is, and this is a theory and practical course, very important for the computer science students. Every student should learn this subject. Theory cannot illustrate and provide complete practical exposure. So, more emphasis on the practical course to facilitate analyzing and applying the software engineering principles for the development and understanding of the software projects, which is realized also. Continue to this, the traditional software engineering practical training approach is not having much impact on student analysis skills. The proposed method, I think I have illustrated very clearly, is used to inculcate the knowledge of software engineering principles and applying it in real-time problems. And students will be able to solve, real life problems. And at least I was happy that they can, even if you choose something which is initially feeling that it is very difficult, later coming out with a good report, they used to feel very happy having done so much of work. So getting more exposure to learn, creativity, problem solving, leadership, and communication, all these are experienced very clearly. And I think with the results that I have got, I have found some good performance than the existing methods. So I think I'll just have 2 more slides regarding the practices of this software engineering. I think I was little convinced with the UML language. I think you people can use some other tools also for this. And I think I also referred certain papers on this best practices of UML. And this is a core activity performed with software engineering. UML, I'll just give you some information on this. This is a de facto standard language for expressing the artifacts very clearly and beautifully. Otherwise, it's very difficult to draw with our hands and some other figures or something like that. So this is a very important tool. The aim of the education in UML is to prepare effectively use UML and modeling at the work. So modeling is very, I think we also have one subject called object modeling language, object modeling design and language. I think we used to teach that in some 8th or 7th semester anyway. Now I think all books give UML in par with, like along with your software engineering also. So due to its generality, standardization and growing tool support, it is not obsolete. It's really gained lot of importance and improvements also. A good version of tools are available. Best practices from this is which improving the existing course to UML. Characteristics are basically with this is iterative. This is, you can do a lot of iterations with use cases. I have just shown you one of the rational way in which you can do it. And this is incremental, of course, wherein each iteration's working version of the system is produced. You can develop an incremental methodology. And one very good advantage and beneficial is all major artifacts in different phases like design documentation, requirements documentation, every documents can be prominently requirements and design documentations can be done with the UML based. And it is obviously use case driven. So when I incorporate this unified modeling language, ultimately I can explicitly mention, or even if I don't say it, it's something like a use case driven analysis. That means each of those will be in terms of use case. I think I have a document I'll show you as a document developed by a student, so you can really map that to that particular thing. This is a rational way of saying problem description, use case diagram, use case description, system sequence diagrams, interaction diagrams, state diagrams. Respectively we'll be developing all. This is a structured method. This is one of the best practices which we need to incorporate. I think this is one of the best practices which I also felt like adopting this particular method. So I just want to relate with our industrial and professional relevance, very important. So that's why all the accreditation processes and any other policies, if you get what is the industry institute interactions, what is the industry institute relationships. So at least from 5th semester onwards, we need to have certain collaborations with the industry. Otherwise, there is no point in just teaching from the academic level. We should know the gap which is there between the industry and the thing. That is why, I usually think of, we also discuss in our department meetings that as far as possible, the subjects which are related to industries, almost all technologies for that matter, you just call industry people and take some guidance and have the lectures and take orientation from them, what kind of projects, what kind of things. All those things need to be done, especially this is experienced in my teaching also. As I told you, mentioned clearly, I was evaluated the reports, very good appreciation given by the industry people. So this is teaching relevant content and then based on the industry, and this is something like the bridging the gap between the industry and the academia, and most of you know about this. So the practices, because this is a pedagogy which is adopted, likewise you can look for any teaching learning practice. So I think I can just relate this practice into 2 types. One is pedagogy wise and subject wise. Subject wise, of course, there is no end to it. And pedagogy also, of late we have lot of digital transformation through learning through the tools, and there are a lot of programs also done by Atal, we have attended FDP for MOOCs and how exactly you can prepare the documentation, prepare the material. Many things are there. Only thing is we should have some time to see it, and we should know which to be extracted, because many things are available. If you are deviated, you will be lost. So identified practices could be basis for further formulation of systematic guidelines. So what I mean to say is, here the UML is very important for this particular course especially. That will really promote this model-driven development, which is the current technology, which is increasing attention and popularity in the industry also. Because wherever we go, people will not do a data flow diagram. They go for a use cases. That is why this UML is predominantly used in the software engineering life cycle. So I think that is why this is one of the best practices in the software engineering course when we are teaching. So what we can insist students is, although we teach procedural description in terms of data flow diagrams, I insist students to develop use cases. This is why I have incorporated here as a best practice for teaching software engineering course. Two of the practices are what to be emphasized. This is what I felt after doing these illustrations and then for presentation. The first practice is the consistency between all artifacts in the entire process. This is pertaining to the course which I have taught. This can be applied to, subjectively to your subjects. One is with respect to the subject, other one is with respect to the pedagogy, right? So in my opinion, the first practice is using of UML and moving towards the model development is one of the important practices that should be emphasized in teaching software engineering, because I have taught both, teaching the traditional methods using the procedural abstraction and teaching with object-oriented software engineering. So this is something that you people need to look at, those who are involved with the software engineering practices to be dealt in their syllabus or in their course. Second practice is the pedagogy. This, like many different methods are available and concerns realization of the student projects. In my opinion, for this subject, I have taken a project-based learning, which I'll show you how exactly I have mapped this to NEP policies. The project should have two iterations. The first is for learning on the mistakes. The second is a more mature solution based on experiences gained in the first. This is true even in our other regular situations. We learn by practice, we learn by iterations, we learn by making mistakes, all this. So, I just want to, consolidate here is practice. One is the consistency that is going to be put in the subject matter, context-wise, based on the subject you're going to teach. What is that you need to be, and we need to get adopted, you need to follow and adopt. For that, you should have a clear domain knowledge. See, very, very important, course objectives, course outcomes. It's not that we will be knowing everything. See, we need to read a lot and get updations and then incorporation. That is basically a teaching, something that faculty should do it. And this is what we also experience in our department for most of the subjects. And this one thing which lastly I would like to give very importance in the undergraduate level, although it's not very well done, but students have got lot of benefits out of this. How? Research interest and promotion. So that's why I have kept some marks for term paper also. It's also important that the course gives the participant awareness and raises interest of new upcoming technologies or recent developments in the area. Very, very important, especially the computer science and IT related branches, because unless we know the recent developments and technologies, what is to be adopted, we will be somewhere in a very low profile. Creating research interest and promotions, that is where research papers will have more edge over. Wherein if you keep reading the papers of your focus domain, maybe you will be adopting in your teaching also. You can give them experiences, you can give them examples, you can relate them with some case studies with data. That will take a hell lot of a time in going with the students. Give students motivation that they learn things which are on the front edge of software development. This motivates them better to study, as they see there's a possibility of. And I would like to attribute to, I think I've seen in some of the placements, like for better employment, these kind of project-based with reports will help. And they can answer very authentically, confidently to the industry people, they will be impressed. And if you do the perm paper for further studies, they will have certain criteria, while selecting in abroad universities, they will have some values or some rubrics associated, or some evaluation will be some basic on this paper presentations. So this is where, it will have an added value for them. So what are the best practices which are evolved from this illustration or from this teaching? So encourage contacts between students and faculty, wonderfully done. develop reciprocity and reciprocative and cooperation among students. This is also, very nicely happening. Use active learning techniques. Yes. Gives prompt feedback. Like sometimes, students will not really feel worried or bad to give a negative comment also. We should not feel bad. Because if they say that, madam, you did not explain, that's why I did not do this. See, that's something that you need to accept it, and we should do correct on that. So this has happened, because I told you, one of the classes I did not do a case study. I started with all that. There, one good student, he asked me, madam, if you had given me earlier the case study, maybe our understanding would have been better. So emphasize time on task, very, very important, because the timeline which I have planned, which I did, not that in all the semesters I've experienced, this was done in the last 1 or 2 years back, so that I really came out with a very good satisfaction on all this. And communicate high expectations. So, and one more thing, whether it's good or bad, this is a strength or weakness of mine. I always expect more from the students, because I just want to say one personal aspect also here. My children also say, Amma, ninge tumba expectations. So I don't know it's good or bad, but I always feel very happy if my students do a good thing. And this has also happened, Our experience to project-based learning are a good form of teaching. Many aspects of software engineering, which are difficult to understand in regular conventional teaching, both I have done, and this is with experience I am talking about. And this has proved a very good improvement. So it's extremely time consuming for students as well as faculty. And sometimes, initially they used to feel, what, every day lab I have to attend, every lab they take attendance, every lab they take all the parameters. It's really bugging, but then they will feel very happy at the end when they give marks and when we evaluate, we talk with them, we interact with them. So still the results of evaluations are encouraging. The positive results makes the effort worthwhile. This is what the practices which I have come out with for this subject. And like these are the case studies which I gave in the last semester students. They came, I gave only some healthcare domain. So they came out with all these topics like pathology lab management system, air ticket booking system, staff availability system, placement questions database, banking management system, student beneficiary system, daily task management. All these are their ideas, And Android application for blood. I think this is one where they have also developed an application, good application. And hospital management system, although it's not a big one, but some component of it. Digital attendance management system for our department, online movie ticket booking system. Beautifully they did this. College social network site, digital ledger, crime reporting management. These are all, not I've just extracted from web resources. This was done from my students last time, but all of them were not up to the mark, but a lot of corrections. But they attempted doing this by applying all the principles. So now I just want to have, I told you the agenda where how exactly the principle, I am not talking about the NEP policy because this itself is a very big topic where it is to be debated, and we also not empowered with the complete practices in our institutions. We are gearing up right now. And this itself is a complete FDP which is to be conducted on NEP. Now I just took these fundamental principles of the NEP policy where recognizing, identifying, and I just want you people to just see this clearly, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student. Emphasis on conceptual, these are the things which were there in the document, NEP policy document. Emphasis on conceptual understanding, creativity and critical thinking, and focus on the last one, regular formative assessment of learning. I think I can say comfortably with satisfaction, all these four are experience and exercise with my students. The remaining three, these are at the college level or at the institutional level, wherein we need to incorporate the ethics, and all these are different things which are not to my topic. So I feel very happy that although we are not really adopting the one-to-one NEP policies which are right now making a very big news and name. And we are also insisting that we insisted that we should adopt, and then we should learn, and we should inculcate in our regular curriculum. But more or less through our NBA accreditation, NBA outcomes, and all those rules and regulations, we could do this and we have exceeded. So I was little happy in seeing this features. Then I thought, okay, all whatever the illustration which I have given should definitely match these principles which I have taken from this one of the documents of NEP. And this is one thing which Dr. PN sir also said in his lecture, the formative learning. I'll not talk about the summative. Whatever we have experienced, I have illustrated in my project-based learning. I think this has happened to an extent more than 80 to 85%, I would say. And this is not, I have not, analyzed this critically. This is what I would like to do now. The formative assessment, I can make a lot of papers also, one is through Bloom's taxonomy. Rubik's evaluation itself is a complete different paper, and formative learning can be one more paper, so which helps students to learn and practice. So this has happened through my project base. So I think I'm happy that at least the formative learning assessments are going on with the subjects which are going. So this is also from one of the slides in the web resource, where helps students to learn and practice when, why, and how. So this has happened. So throughout the course, yes, in terms of a practical orientation, identify gaps and improve learning, yes, through a lot of activities which are designed, and via approaches that support specific student needs, yes. What are all they require, we are going to satisfy them with a lot of reviews, interactions, and things. I will not talk about summative because I don't think, I just, know, this is totally a performance, assess student performance, yes, in a way it must have also included, but I did not do any analysis on this. So this is one of the slides which I also took from NEP, because this is FDP more related to NEP practices also. So I didn't want to leave out that particular topic. I just wanted to see that how I can link NEP policies to the teaching which we have done. This is not that just that I have taken, this is all implemented exercise and typical case study of a subject. So key principles of national education policy, I think I will not talk on this, but I think somewhere all the principles with respect to the curriculum, definitely we can do, say something like critical thinking and creativity is incorporated to boost logical decision making, and obviously it's happened. Unique capabilities recognizing from each student, yes. Emphasize conceptual understanding, yes. Community participation, uplifting, and like this, I want to tell you very in one or two sentences. From our department, students do a lot of outreach programs. All this has helped through this project-based learning. Like they can make certain groups, and when they start involving with each one of them, so they can make. We have a lot of technical clubs in our department. So through that also they are doing. That's not an issue. But when it comes to the general principles, this is of course equity and inclusions to become the cornerstones of all education institutions. This is also we need to be taken care. Respect for diversity and local. So this is curriculum, pedagogy, and policy. So this is one of the important slide of document NEP, which I just thought that I should see how we can link this. So acknowledgements of those two papers. And this is what I have. I think I have given. Lastly, I have one case study. Just a minute. Last one, 10 minutes.
Uh, yeah, madam, we couldn't hear.
Just 2 minutes. I'll finish it off. Okay. And then just 2 minutes. Okay, I just want to show you one staff availability system which our student did. A simple, report, but they did wonderfully the project in a very short span of time. I am not representing here the complete document, but just for the evaluation purpose and for the complete presentations they just had, how they just took all this requirements, inception, elicitation, elaboration, negotiation, specification, validation. All these points are addressed, and the introduction is basically requirements engineering in the process of defining all this. It's a process of gathering and defining the requirement. Here, the objective was the staff availability. So, like here, the stakeholders are the Department of Computer Science only. And they did, people that want solutions can be implemented by departments and universities. Students and lecturers are the people who want solutions. See, what is it we should observe here is the amount of involvement that they do in each and every aspect. So nature of the solution, the system must never skip or forget an urgent task, should immediately lead to increased productivity and satisfaction. Primary purpose is to keep users' mind to ease. So these are the factors that they, kept in mind. And question is, these lecturers, how do you pass some information to the students during non-working hours? So these are the questions they asked to the stakeholders, which are basically our faculty members. Sources through which you gather the required contact numbers. Do you want your contact number to be added to the students part of that? So like how exactly all these questions that they took from the stakeholders and how they are going to really collect the informations in terms of requirements gathering aspect. And students, do you face any issues while contacting lecturers? And also the other ways, other stakeholders are the students. Collect information from the students. And if your app was available to you now, would it be helpful to you? Can you think of any reasons why your product would fail to serve its purpose? So this is elaboration is technical model of software functions, features, and constraints. Analysis modeling with the use cases. This is what I told you very clearly in the presentations. Although we just also looked at the presentation of both the introduction and data flow diagrams and the procedural abstracts. But somewhere, like based on the technologies adaptations, we have to inculcate what is need for the industry, for the project developments, wherein the analysis modeling with use cases beautifully did all the use cases for the analysis, which they collected requirements and then made certain analysis. This is one of the use cases like login to profile. So who are all the actors identified? So there can be the stakeholders who are going to be the actors. How exactly the conditions are specified? So different scenarios. So this is one of the use cases which they have incorporated for the requirements elicitation and analysis and validation purpose. And negotiation is also very important. Cannot completely state all the requirements explicitly. When the requirements collected from all the stakeholders are collaborated, certain requirements appear to be conflict. See, this is, I told you, in one of the illustrations which I did in the laboratories, they used to have a lot of requirements for negotiations, how this is to be considered, which are important, which are not important, wherein it should not affect anyone, right? So different strategies are to be adopted for different projects. So this is something that where the mentor has to be involved with the students. So the conceptual understanding of a particular domain aspect with respect to a project will lead to a good negotiation remarks at the end. So these are, the really what kind of representations with respect to opinions gathered from both all different stakeholders. Probably through negotiation, they come out with a simple one. A feature was added so that only I think it's not required that we have a class representative, right? So probably some stakeholders in terms of faculties would feel that class representative is enough to be communicated. So sometimes all the students would require certain interactions. So a lot of things here also, not that it is a perfect requirements, but for the requirements specified, things are good. So what I mean is both the stakeholders should be satisfied without any doubts. So specifications, of course, the hardware software specifications for the developing this software project model. Product features, so indication of availability of the lecturers in the staff room, secured access to profiles of individual lecturers, text box features to share specific information to select students, or as a whole in lecturer profile. So this is itself is a very big project, but they based on the development goes with how exactly they are going to define the requirements. So what do I mean by it? Is the functionality of the requirements. So what are all the inputs, what are all the outputs should have a proper matching, and test cases are designed for that. So these certain validations are very required for completing the test cases. Then only we can say we have fulfilled the requirements. So internal validation, external validations are done. So certain only here, the report is around 90 pages, but I have just extracted certain information which are very relevant to one phase of the development life cycle. So also, certain factors which they talk about, the password aspect they have specified in the slides. How exactly we can manage the requirements, to identify, control, and track the requirement that changes and can be made anytime. Sometimes you have to give ad hoc, clearances to certain requirements. That is also possible. So this is certain discussions that they have taken. They have moved around with certain activities were held with them to get all the details. These are our faculty members only. So this is done by one of the batches. So this is what I just wanted to give you as a case study with illustration which we did in the class of teaching a software engineering. So I hope I've given information with respect to project-based learning for a subject which I have handled particularly, and this is true with other faculty members also here. Like they teach their own way of dealing this. The concept is or the active learning technique which is used as a project-based learning. So each faculty members will adopt their own way of their authentic and their expertise, and then they adopt it. But overall, in a department, especially from 5th semester onwards, the subjects like the domain subjects like conceptual subjects like operating systems, software engineering, computer networks, and web technologies, and any other electives like big data, which I'm handling for my MTech. I'm also doing a very good analysis for a big data analysis for a MTech batch. So they have a limited students, and we should also see the students' ability and skills also. We cannot just give that a big project for them to do it. So there are various factors to be analyzed, but this is one of the ways in which we can make an effective teaching by applying good pedagogy. This is what I wanted to convey with respect to illustrations. If I have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you very much, man. That was a wonderful session. You've covered the nuances of software engineering, and you took us through each and every concept of software engineering and clearly enlightened us with the best teaching learning practices to be followed by the teaching fraternity. And case studies gave us clear idea about how actually teachers have to plan when they teach software engineering. Thank you so much for that. And the floor is open for queries. If anybody has any queries, please unmute and you can ask your queries. Please unmute and ask the queries. Oh, madam, we'll take the questions offline.
No issues, no issues.
Yeah, any queries you have, please post the queries to our mail ID. Madam will answer those questions at her convenient time. And thank you everybody for attending the session. And the next session will start at 11 o'clock. The last
Okay,
session. 50
Yeah, can continue. I just want to conclude. Thank you so much, Vani, for giving an opportunity to present whatever I think it's a pedagogy with respect to a subject which I have taken it. So I hope this is informative, and you can also customize to this framework. This is what, and thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, madam. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and participants, please join the session, the next session by 10:50 a.m. And we'll be starting the valedictory function by 2 o'clock and will conclude early. But we want it's mandatory to attend the valedictory function, valedictory session, and you will have links will be open for feedback and quiz, which you'll have to fill in before stipulated time. We'll be announcing the time also. So we'll join for yoga session and next for the valedictory session. Thank you.